Algebra 1, Unit 7b Study Guide, Quadratic Functions and Equations, Factoring, Part 2. So let's look at the last few problems on the study guide. Let's start with number 9. So a rectangle has a length of 20 feet more than its width. The area of the rectangle is 96 square feet. Write an equation and solve to find the dimensions of the triangle. So the first thing you want to do is to sketch a picture. So a length is 20 feet more than its width. So let's let the width be x, and then let's let the length be x plus 20. And then together it says the area of the entire rectangle is 96 feet squared. Well, if you remember with a rectangle, length times width will equal the area. So we'll take x, which represents the width, times x plus 20, which represents the length, and we'll set that equal to 96. Now to find the dimensions of the rectangle, we need to solve for x, which is the width, and then we can find the length. So let's start by distributing our x's, and then let's subtract the 96 so we can have everything on one side of the equal sign. And now let's look and see if we can factor. So we're looking for two numbers that will multiply to give us negative 96, and will combine to give us 20. So thinking of factors of 96, we have 1 and 96, that won't combine to give us 20, 2 and 48, that won't combine to give us 20, 3 and 32, 4 and 24. So if we make the 4 negative, then those will combine to multiply and add together with what we want. So since our a value is 1, then we can go right to our two sets of parentheses and factor that as x minus 4 times x plus 24. Then if we set these each equal to 0, our possible solutions are x equals 4, so that would be the width is 4 feet, or our width is going to be negative 24 feet. Well, often in a real life problem that is solved with a quadratic, one of the answers will work for you and one of them won't. So it looks like we have a width of 4 feet, and then if we add 20 to that, we have a length of 24 feet. Now the zero product property rule is a very important one when we're factoring. So this rule says if two things multiply to give us 0, then one or both of them must equal 0. And so we just set both of them equal to 0. Get 0. Then one or both must equal 0. So since it is possible that both equal 0, then we set them both equal to. So here's an example. I just have two factors, x times x plus 20 equaling 0. So that means one or both of them, so we'll just set both of them equal to 0 and solve. So our possible solutions on this would be 0 and negative 20. Let's look at number 11. A golf ball is hit from the ground with an initial velocity of 48 feet per second. How long will the ball be in the air before it reaches the ground? So you want to solve for t in this equation that you see below. That's going to be our time in seconds. And if you notice, it mentioned 48 feet per second, and that's where this value comes into our formula. This number right here is just the deceleration due to gravity in feet per second squared. So let's start by factoring, and we can factor out an entire negative 16 and a t from that. When we divide it from the first term, we're left with just a positive t, and then from the second term, it's a minus 3. Now we have two factors multiplying together to equal 0, so we're going to use that zero product property rule and set them each equal to 0. When we divide both sides by negative 16, our first answer is 0 seconds, and our second one is 3 seconds. So the ball started on the ground, so at 0 seconds, it's on the ground. But what we're interested in is once it hits, how long before it reaches the ground. And that's our second answer. 3 seconds in the air, and then it will be on the ground again. All right, let's look at our last problem. So you're staying on the 24th floor of a hotel. You accidentally drop your phone off the balcony and it falls at a rate of 32 feet per second. How long will it take before your phone hits the ground? So we're going to solve for t, time in seconds. And here's the equation that models the situation. So if you think about the last one, and that velocity number, in this it's 32 feet per second squared. So that's where this value comes into play. This first number is that number due to gravity, and then this last one, just for a little extra information, is how many feet off the ground your phone started. So the first thing we can do is look for a greatest common factor. So I have a feeling that 16 will divide into 240, and it does. So we'll factor out a negative 16 to take that negative out. So we'll be left with t squared minus 2t and then minus 15, because 15 times 16 equals 240. Now 16 is just a constant out front multiplying, so we can go ahead and divide that from both sides. And so we're left with t squared minus 2t minus 15 equals 0. Now let's find a factor pair to solve. So we're looking for two numbers that will multiply to give us negative 15 and combine to give us negative 2. I am thinking 3 and 5, and let's make the 5 negative. So since our a value is 1, we can go right to our parentheses. So t plus 3 times t minus 5 equals 0. If we set these each equal to 0 and solve, our first possible solution is negative 3, which doesn't really make sense, negative 3 seconds. Our second one is 5 seconds. That makes more sense. It's a pretty tall balcony. So how long will it take your phone before it hits the ground? 5 seconds falling. And that finishes our study guide, so study hard and good luck on your test.